Greetings, friends, and welcome back to another episode of Dreamscapes. Today we have our friend Dr. Helen Ofosu from Ottawa, Canada. We're going to get right back to her in just a moment. If you would, please like, share, subscribe, tell your friends. Always need more volunteer dreamers, viewers for the video game streams I do nightly at 5 p.m. And 16 currently available works of historical dream literature, the most recent Dreams and Their Meanings by Horace G. Hutchinson, available now. You can get all this and more at benjaminthedreamwizard.com. Complete list of all 16 available books, Encyclopedia of Dream People and Concepts, downloadable MP3 versions of this podcast, etc., etc. That's enough shilling for me. Dr. Ofosu, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I was intrigued by your title, The Dream Wizard.
Thank you very much. It is, as I said off air, and it's there's no licensure currently for being a wizard, so we'll see if that remains. I forgot to give your Mother of Dragons titles. Our friend Helen here is an author, executive coach, HR consultant, and she's got videos up on YouTube, so officially a YouTuber for what that's worth. And you can find her material at theresilientcareer.com, link in the description. I figured that's a good place to start. I mean, you've got a book, so we could talk about that, or how you came to be in this position. Wherever you want to start, it's fine with me.
Sure. Well, in February 2023, I have my very first book published. Maybe I'll pull it up. I've got a copy on my desk.
Right. I keep forgetting to have mine handy and wave it around too. That's the perfect thing to do. We are getting a little stuttery frame rate on your end. There's nothing you can do about it, or me, but so folks know. Anyway, go ahead.
I think it's because of the freezing rain we're getting here in Ottawa today, even though it's April.
Oh, yeah. Isn't that funny? Where they say, April showers bring May flowers. But what do you do when it's snowing? Sleet and freezing rain in April.
Well, tomorrow will be nice and warm, so I'm sure this will be a memory soon.
Right. Yeah. I'm not looking forward to, 90-degree heat, but I'm over the cold and the wet right now. It's funny living in Portland. It's like, really? You don't like the rain and the wet and you live in Portland? What are you doing to yourself? Anyway, some of us we are where we are.
Yeah. So summer 2020, I joined a business mastermind, and one of the guest speakers who came was a book agent. And it was really only at that moment that I started thinking, oh my goodness, all the things she's saying, things that I'm kind of doing. Maybe I could have a book. I followed up with her, and she focuses mostly on memoirs and fiction. So she made an introduction to somebody who's more in the business lane, spoke to him, and he said, yeah, we should work together. And I think from October 2020 until June or July 2021, he basically came up with the concept. I knew I had some training materials, I had some ideas, I had some blog content. So I went from 0 to 90 pretty quickly. And in the summertime of 2021, I had a full manuscript, and we basically created all the different parts that we assumed a publisher might want. So chapter summaries, table of contents, entire manuscript. If someone said, send me one chapter, we knew which one. Someone said 3 chapters, we knew which 3, and basically submitted a bunch of proposals. I had an awful lot of no's before we got a yes.
Yeah.
So here we are.
That's one of the reasons I went the kind of the Amazon Kindle direct self-publishing route with my stuff. Is like I just skip all that stuff and just put it out there. And a lot of what I'm reproducing are public domain works because they are historical documents from the 1920s, the 1900s, 18s, 1600s, etc. Trying to capture, creating, as I say, my own masterclass in the understanding, or the historical understanding of dreams, and the process of making sense of them. So, but it sounds like you went the more normal publishing route, which, as you say, is not easy. I mean, selling an agent or a publisher on taking a chance on your book can be very difficult, but it helps when you've got a basic mastery of the subject matter already, and you're trying to make it understandable and useful to people. It sounds like you brought together your expertise and tried to lay it out.
I did. It's really about basically the top 10 or 11 work-related challenges that a lot of my clients have been facing over
Mm,
the past 10 years.
yeah.
And it doesn't matter whether these are people who are early career, more established. Generally speaking, they're already quite successful and capable. I just found the same things kept coming up again and again and again.
Yeah.
And really, I thought, you know what? If these are things that successful people are dealing with the support of a coach, I bet regular folks will appreciate this book.
For
And
sure.
honestly, I wish this book had existed 15 years ago because I would have benefited if it had been written a bunch of years ago.
Yeah. That is a fantastic motivator. I'd say that's a universal human motivator is to share knowledge. Is like, I wish I knew then what I know now. I mean, that's famous enough to be a line in a song, I think. Um, and and just the desire to share that and say, like, maybe I can help someone. Maybe we get a win-win out of this. I sell a book, they get useful information. Um, I was going to ask, not for a pick your top, because this is always so arbitrary and how do you do? Um, but maybe one example of a common, I'm sorry, before I get to that, my second point was that there are some recurrent problems that are inherent to any topic area and inherent to the human condition, whereas you're never going to outgrow them. They are going to reoccur and you're going to have to deal with them in some way, no matter your level of business. You can be, an absolute master of your craft and, as you say, working with a coach, and you're still going to run into situations that have to be navigated because it's just going to happen. So I was going to ask for an example of something, maybe whatever comes to mind, or something you think might be most useful. And we can talk about how you describe it in the book.
Sure. So basically, each chapter kind of aligns with a different issue that happens at work pretty commonly.
Mm,
So one of them could be being underemployed.
mm,
But there are a lot of people who are very capable. Maybe they took a job because they were short on money or the economy wasn't great, and they took something that was a little bit below their real level. Sometimes they
no,
end up staying there and kind of getting pigeonholed.
yeah,
Right, so that's a very common experience, especially for newcomers, maybe for people who are going through some kind of a transition and just feel compelled to sort of just get back into the workplace somewhere and then kind of just go from there. There's been a lot of talk lately about toxic workplaces, so dealing
mm,
with things like harassment or bullying or any of the different versions of discrimination. So these are things that, they happen to people regardless of what their background is.
yeah.
Uh, yeah, so those are a couple of examples.
Good deal. Yeah. In the, say, underemployment category, a lot of it, I think, is people get comfortable. I mean, even if it isn't exactly ideal, we still settle into a routine and then it becomes a struggle to break out of it. The idea of stuck in a rut, but it's more of like, what am I trying to say? I'm trying to frame it in the way that people experience it psychologically. It's like, oh, it's going to be so much work to change this bad situation. Maybe it isn't so
Yeah.
bad. Maybe the bad is tolerable because the effort is worse, and kind of breaking people out of that mindset. Do you go into that a bit?
Well, that's it. Sometimes you start a job, and it's good when you start,
Mm-hmm.
but you stay too long and you've kind of outgrown it. But the inertia to move past
Yeah,
where you are is just too much.
for sure.
Sometimes think about the analogy of a plane taking off into the wind.
Yeah,
I didn't even appreciate that planes normally go into the wind because it's counterintuitive.
yeah,
But in life, sometimes there are a bunch of things that are kind of pushing back against you that makes it hard to launch or to relaunch.
mm-hmm.
And sometimes just a little bit of support at the right time helps people move past those points of inertia and get reestablished.
Yeah, definitely. Do you offer some guidance? I assume you do, but what am I trying to ask? Like practical tips for here's how to kind of, number one, recognize you're stuck in a rut, that this is a situation that fits the criteria. And here's some of the things you could do to try to change your mindset or practical steps to move you forward.
That's it. Each chapter kind of sets the scene in terms of what is the issue, some signals that you can be watching for, so that even if other people are saying, nah, don't worry about it, it's not so serious, you can still do your own self-evaluation to make sure that if it's something you're dealing with, then you can, do that self-diagnosis, and there's some ideas for how to get past it.
Sorry, the cat's being annoying. She wants loves right now. I sit down and it's a little distracted there. So you were describing things and I was trying to keep her out of the way. So my brain was halfway with you and it wasn't. I apologize. It's hard for me to conceptualize questions for broad stroke stuff because it's so unique and individual, I think, right? In terms of like, well, what would you tell a person in this situation? Well, what is their situation? It's kind of the use. It's almost like what's broad strokes psychological advice? Well, it's going to depend on the person. It's not a satisfactory answer to most people. They want hard facts. Do this always. They want like rules of thumb they can just apply universally. And maybe there are some and maybe there aren't.
Well, see, here's the thing. Basically, this book covers a lot of issues that people experience. They're not always the kinds of things you can just Google and find your full solution.
Yeah.
They're also the kinds of things where when it's happening to you, you may not have anyone to talk to about it.
Yeah.
And if you're at work, you may not want to talk about these things.
Yeah.
Or the folks who you're working with might be really motivated to kind of downplay it to sort of, keep you appeased and content. Or if it's more sinister, kind of gaslighting to make you not think it's a big deal.
Yeah.
So issues around identity, in terms of scapegoating, imposter syndrome. I mentioned the toxic workplaces, professional boundaries, those kinds of issues.
For sure. No, and actually you just did something genius there that I wish I'd thought to ask, but labels, not labels as in labeling, but understanding that there is a term for a concept that describes a situation and arming people with understanding and the ability to label it and say, oh my God, that's what's happening to me. I'm being scapegoated in this toxic environment. Or I forgot what some of the other ones were, but giving people that ammunition, the tools for self-understanding, to just see themselves and the situation for what it is accurately. I think that's very powerful.
Absolutely. And that's the thing. I mean, you've got a background in psychology, so you know what boundaries are.
Can't live with them, can't live without them.
The fact is that for regular people, if you're not in mental health, you're not a teacher, not a lawyer, not a physician, for the rest of us, we just try to go to work and do our thing, but we don't really have any guidelines or any guardrails in terms of what good boundaries are in the workplace.
Yeah.
And things are so blurred, especially because of these years of remote work and now hybrid work. It's fraught. So
it is.
I describe things that even though they have names, regular people are experiencing them and not having a title for them.
Yeah, definitely. Being able to really name the problem and fully understand the ramifications of what it means to be in that situation. Say, okay, and I was just having a discussion. This is fantastic. I love big believer in, Carl Jung's collective unconscious, but also the synchronicity. There's things that just line up and man, it feels magic. So I was actually having a discussion today about a gal who's in a family situation where, no fault of her own, her mom died. Now she's living with her older sister who expects her to be a live-in nanny for the kid. And there are poor boundaries there. There are unreasonable expectations. And my advice, I don't really give advice. I try not to. I try to frame the situation so that people understand where they're coming from. And hey, I can tell you what I would do. In that situation, I said, understand, and I love this analogy, for a hero to be successful, they have to understand what story they are in. And I love framing it in the Joseph Campbell style of, you're going to suffer in the dark forest, but you can you only have two choices at that point. You're going to succumb to the dark forest and it will kill you, or you fight through to the other side and you get out and, but just giving this person the understanding that what the pain you are experiencing is normal. And what she was already, I think she was already doing about it was an effective course of action in my estimation. So just kind of normalizing that experience in terms of, yeah, you're doing literally everything you can, understand it properly. I said, you're almost kind of like a POW planning a prison break. Just nod and smile and keep the guards happy until you've got your hole dug and bounce. Sometimes that's all you can do. And I would say that applies to the workplace too. I mean, just nod and smile, even if you're looking for another job. Don't make a big deal about it. Don't cause conflict. It's not going to work in your favor. Do not expect unreasonable people to treat you fairly. Don't expect toxic people to be nice. If I just explain it to them, they don't care. They're not going to be good to you. If they were good to you, then you wouldn't have a problem. Go ahead. Sorry, I rambled.
No, I agree. And I like those two analogies.
Thank you. That's what I try to do with this. I consider this, edutainment. I'm like, hopefully people come away from this as they will if they read your book, having an understanding of where they are in the situation and what it looks like, accept it for what it is, and now you can do something about it. You got to kind of diagnose the cancer before you can cut it out, that kind of thing. I love analogies too, so it's just kind of my thing. Actually, the whole analogy thing is how I do the dream stuff. It's like you have to be able to kind of see things from a little bit of a top-down metaphysical sense of like, it's not just what's happening, it's looking at what's happening from a little bit outside the fishbowl of yourself. And sometimes you need a bit of a partner to kind of stand over your shoulder and shine a flashlight in the dark and kind of help you see what's happening there. So I know you are short on, go ahead. Sorry.
It's a powerful foundation though, because I know, in terms of coincidences, I know of one person whose company name has Dream Maker in the title. I know somebody else who's some kind of a business coach and has to do with transformational dreams or transformational dreaming.
Yeah, definitely.
So when I saw your podcast, I thought, this is kind of out of the box. Let me go talk to him.
For sure. Yeah. And it all relates to how I conceive of a wizard. It's like, does this guy really think he's a wizard? Well, yes and no. Like I can't hold out my hand and go behold the fire. It's not going to happen. There's laws of physics, but laws of physics is exactly what makes it possible to be a wizard, because the classic iconic representation is old person, seen a lot, gray in the beard, etc., stooped over walking with a staff because they're, literally elderly. That gives a special cause and effect insight. Let me tell you what the future is going to look like for you, because I've seen it and it's consistent. Scientists broadly are practicing wizardry, even alchemy. And there's the alchemy of relationships, and alchemy became chemistry, that kind of stuff. So the idea of transformation, I've talked with folks who are shamans. That's how they conceptualize it. They're a transformational shaman. They're trying to help, almost like a midwife, give birth to new ideas. I talked to one gal who's a dream pollinator. Seed your dreams with the potential to blossom in that sense, but also, pollinating your life with your dreams so that they come true, so that you're putting it into practice. Great metaphysical conceptualizations of these things. I love it. And some people are just more attracted to that. Oh, wizard. You could say, no offense to you, but if you say, well, I'm a consultant or a coach. Technically, that's all I am. I'm just like a dream coach, which there's nothing wrong with that. It just doesn't have the same gravitas, it doesn't have the same kind of, ooh, neat appeal to it. It's just branding in some ways, but, now I got cat hair in my nose.
And your comments before just reminded me of another book that's aligned with dreams, The Alchemist.
I haven't heard of that. What's the nature of that one?
It's a story that, depending on how old you are and how you read it, it could be a children's story or it could be something much more profound.
Those are some of the best.
A young man who has a bit of a journey, and basically the key message is that when you are determined to do something and you're very motivated and you're kind of all in, the universe will conspire to help make that dream come true.
It kind of feels that way sometimes.
It does.
Yeah. And sometimes the universe will conspire to put you in an uncomfortable position. I found that myself, where it's like, I didn't really cause this. As far as I can tell, nothing I did led up to this point, but I am now in a position I find intolerable, whatever that is. And conceptually, no one changes anything until it's not working anymore. that's kind of how we get stuck in a rut. Well, this is working well enough. When it's no longer working, we start looking at, okay, what's going wrong? How can I change this? I'm not happy. My financial needs are not being met, et cetera. Excuse me. And so sometimes you get into a situation where the universe says it literally slams a door and forgets to open a window. And you're like, all right, now I have to break a hole in a wall. I'm getting out one way or another, because the option is to stay in the room trapped forever. And some people do that. I can't recommend it. I don't think it's a recipe for a happy life. But yeah, I like that conceptualization too. As they say, when God shuts a door, he opens a window. Like sometimes they're both closed and you got to make your own exit.
Usually you have some kind of a tool to chisel a hole or a path, right?
Definitely. Yeah. And just the knowledge of, you could consider, what you do and what I do in that regard, and people who get your book as like giving you the tool to chisel the hole in a way. It's like if you, or at least the knowledge to use the tools you have. Because if you don't know what a hammer's for, if you don't know how to work a saw, you can't accomplish what those tools are meant to do. So it's just that knowledge of what is this and how do I do what I need to do with it? We could probably talk about this stuff for the whole rest of the hour, but I do want to get to the dream thing, because I don't want to cheat you of that experience. Do you feel ready to jump into that?
Absolutely.
All right, let me do a little timestamp here. Benjamin the Dream Wizard wants to help you pierce the veil of night and shine the light of understanding upon the mystery of dreams. Every episode of his Dreamscapes program features real dreamers gifted with rare insight into their nocturnal visions. New Dreamscapes episodes appear every week on YouTube, Rumble, Odyssey, and other video hosting platforms, as well as free audiobooks highlighting the psychological principles which inform our dream experience, and much, much more. To join the wizard as a guest, reach out across more than a dozen social media platforms and through the contact page at benjaminthedreamwizard.com, where you will also find the wizard's growing catalog of historical dream literature available on Amazon, featuring the wisdom and wonder of exploration into the world of dreams over the past 2,000 years. That's Benjamin the Dream Wizard on YouTube and at benjaminthedreamwizard.com. Okay, so my normal process is, it's a very sudden transition. I'm trying to respect people's time limits. If you only have an hour to talk to me, I'll try and make it happen. It's okay. My basic process is going to shut up and listen. Our friend's going to tell us the dream, beginning to end, whatever you remember. As I always say, you can't do this wrong. You don't remember something, you don't remember it. No worries. And then we'll go through it again and try and put it together. Something that makes sense. So I'm ready when you are.
All right. Well, I have two versions, and they're pretty much recurring dreams on the exact same theme. And my sense is that it's all about this whole, well, you know what? I shouldn't get into the interpretation.
Yeah. Don't tell me. We're going to stump the wizard here. See if I can get close to what you already understand.
I'll just tell you what it was.
Yeah, just one instance.
So short and sweet. I find myself on a podcast. So very similar to this. It's by Zoom. And in one version, I'm talking to Brené Brown. Dreaming big. And we're talking about my work, and we're talking about my book. And of course, this whole thing around career issues, it does also tie into people's identities. So whether you're a member of the Pride community or a racialized person, a person with disabilities or whatever, I know that she's very much interested in those issues as well, plus leadership. And I guess you remember it feeling very surreal and very exciting, but also comfortable because she's a great interviewer. That's one version.
So you, that's broad strokes of kind of the similarities between them. Do you have one instance that stands out that fills in a little more details, like how and why, what was said, the process of it?
Not really. See, the problem is that I think I'm a little sleep deprived. So when I go to sleep, I just kind of sleep, and I don't really remember my dreams very often.
Gotcha. No, that's not uncommon.
This is one that I had a few times, but this is pretty much all that I remember.
Okay.
Another version, almost the exact same, but just a different person. I'm on a podcast with Adam Grant. He's an organizational psychologist, and for a while I was listening to his podcast called Work Life. And he basically would interview people who maybe had done research on something or were experts on something that was related to work. I just found that the way he frames things is very relatable, informed, usually by research. Again, I'm not sure how I got invited, but I got invited to be on his podcast. It was recorded by video. There was no travel. And we just talked a little bit about our shared backgrounds, because I'm also an organizational psychologist. I never ended up in academia, whereas he is an academic, but now also has this whole other thing that he does with the podcast and a series of books.
Mm-hmm.
And so again, I'm on his show and we're talking about basically all kinds of work-related challenges that people are facing, tied again to my book.
Okay.
So
gotcha.
That's pretty much, I don't remember exact questions they asked. I think, actually, you know what? I think both of them would have asked me, how did you write this? And why hasn't anyone else written this? Right? Given how common these problems are, well, how comes you wrote this?
When they, when each of them, respectively or uniformly, asks you that question, what is their tone? How do they present it? Like amazement or, I don't know how you would describe it.
Curiosity, warm curiosity, and some admiration, because both of them understand that these are issues that really get people bent out of shape.
Yeah.
If these are things that when they're happening at work, it's not that easy to go home and completely forget about it, right? If you're at the root of a scapegoating scheme, your livelihood's threatened.
Mm-hmm.
When you go home, you're still spinning about that. You're still processing it.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, that's probably the number one reason people take home work stress is, it's one thing to have a job related problem, a problem where a situation goes wrong, you handle it poorly, and you need to address it in terms of specifically work performance. Another thing to have relational stress with coworkers. That's a completely different thing that really does transcend into your personal life in a way that work problems don't. Even if you go home, you're still processing how to do something better or a problem you haven't solved yet. It's a different kind of stress. That's in a way a good stress. It's challenging creativity. This one's challenging, self-concept and am I the bad guy? You get the whole gaslighting side of the toxic scapegoating thing. And the fact that you're going to have to go back into a stressful environment and deal with the same people that treated you poorly last time and every time before that, because they're not changing. And you got to decide, how do I handle this? How do I endure it? Or how do I get out? Very much so.
Stress is definitely one of the key themes in the book. Whether you're talking about boundaries, bullying, discrimination, scapegoating, all of these things are relational.
Yeah, definitely. As I was saying about boundaries, like other people can't live with them, can't live without them. There's almost a conflict by nature of our, and then dealing with it well through proper boundaries and understanding your situation. I mean, it's kind of the human condition in a lot of ways. So we can't, what's that movie? There Will Be Blood. This is a situation people are going to have to deal with to one degree or another. Hopefully not enough that it makes you want to leave a workplace, but if it does, you got to decide, do I go? Is that what's good for me?
That's another chapter. Should I stay or should I go?
There you go. I could probably along those themes, write an entire book full of, with chapters all titled after songs that really capture. It's one of the great things we love about artists is they take emotion and ideas and put them into a form that resonates with people. Yeah. You really feel it. You're like, that's me. That's exactly me. That's my situation. Somebody gets it. It's very powerful catharsis there. Okay. So, normally, and here's, as I said, you cannot do this wrong. I work with whatever people bring me. It's the best you got. That's what we do. Ideally, discrete images in sequence from a specific dream is best for new understanding. If it's an older dream, we get a stump the wizard kind of thing, which this is overlapping with that category a little bit, where it's like, let me see if I can get close to what you already understand based on your experience, because you know you best. I'm not bringing anything new to the table except perspective, suggestions. None of these answers are in me. I'm not talking to spirits or God or whatever. You know, I don't have unique insight other than, what if we look at it this way? What if we look over here? Now we're into maybe a subcategory of that, which is, here's the basic theme of the dreams. I usually like to go from discrete dream to expand into themes, but you've got the themes mostly, and you've got some specific people, but the process is the same. And I would assume this was, these dreams started because you finished the book and you're looking at promoting, and were either anticipating being on podcasts or were already in the process of actively being on podcasts.
You know what? This was even before I even had a contract.
Oh. This was during the book writing process?
Well, it was probably during that long wait between summer of 2021 and spring of 2022.
Okay. Getting the time.
Probably just, aspiring and hoping.
Yeah. Well, also,
manifesting.
Yes, in that way. So there's definitely that. There's dreams that are, broadly speaking, you could say all dreams are about our hopes and fears. And that's a bit of a truism, because it's, what do we think about other than what might go wrong or what we hope will happen? And we try and put those together in terms of, analyzing the worst case scenario to how do I deal with this, or analyzing the best case scenario, how do I make that happen? So it seems like part of this was how, what am I trying to ask? How did you feel being the guest? That's a broad question. I'm trying to nail it down in terms of, like, did you start feeling one way, say anxious and trepidatious, and they made you comfortable, or you were always confident they were going to like you and it was going to be a good experience? What was your emotional evolution over the dream?
I don't think I had a full evolution, or at least I can't remember it right now.
Sure.
But what I remember of both versions is that they were warm experiences.
Gotcha. So there was no.
I don't know if they started that way, but the parts that I remember was that they were good interviews. They were relatable. We were laughing.
Yeah.
It was good.
Yeah, and I think that's a very powerful iconography, so to speak, that what you got from them was warm curiosity, and that it was that they showed interest, but that it was validating of your value, your worth, that they recognized a kindred spirit of worthy of respect in that way. How do we tease out whether this is purely wishful thinking or what am I trying to say? Or a realistic appraisal, in a sense? That can be a tough question. That's where the nature of the dream details sometimes gives us context. I would lean towards, and you tell me how this feels like it's got to resonate with you, like I said, with music and songs. I would say, because of the context, this does speak more towards a self-confidence in terms of, I genuinely believe what I have to share is of value, such that people I respect for their opinion and their ability would look at me and go, I am a kindred spirit. I am someone who's offering something of equal value, but in the same value category. How do you feel about that?
I think that's accurate. See, for 10 years in my own business, I'm often doing things in the background, right? Supporting individuals who are trying to get ahead or solve problems. And on the HR side, again, typically kind of in the background, helping to solve HR-related issues, or maybe doing some recruitment for an organization. So not always front and center. And going back to even my early experiences as a kid, I've always been kind of underestimated.
Mm.
And that's okay, because it allows you to move very quickly.
It's true. There's a statement I heard, years and years ago, and it always struck me, under promise, over deliver. Set that expectation right.
Yeah.
I love that idea. I mean, you don't want to claim, I'm the biggest, I'm the greatest, I'm the best. Cause then people go, well, you're pretty good, but come on. And also you don't want to say I'm not very good. Cause you gotta, cause then someone's going to go, well, then why would I hire you? No offense. You admit yourself that you're not. So you've got these kind of icons of people you would consider peers in the broader sphere, people who do good work that you respect and that they're acknowledging your worth in a way that is welcoming, and they're genuinely curious. That, I think that's a key component too. It's like you're conceiving your work as contributing something new in a sense, even if it's as old as Aesop's fables. The current discussion, I would say, may be lacking certain elements that you think are vital to the broader conversation. And that if these things are added, and that's why you've got, I would say, their genuine, warm curiosity, warm because they like you and they consider you, validating you, but also curiosity because they wouldn't be curious if they were bored, if they already knew all these things, if you weren't adding something valuable that was new or changing the conversation in some way. I don't know how that strikes you.
That's probably accurate. And one thing that I have going for me that many people don't, is that I work on two sides. I work with individuals doing executive coaching or career coaching. I also work with organizations, helping to figure out, various interventions to solve problems.
Yeah.
So I hear things from two very different perspectives that don't usually belong in the same person.
Yeah, definitely. And there's, and I would say you have to work on both sides of the problem because one can't really work without the other. If you don't have interpersonal relationships that are functional and you don't have business processes that are functional, you get both of those dysfunctional, the whole thing falls apart. That business is not going to be around for very long. One or the other being a problem, and that impairs its opposite or partner. You get both working the best they possibly can. It's hard not to succeed in that sense. We get kind of a Johari window out of that. In that corner is like, this is where success is even possible. Looking at the details here. So you definitely have, you've got practical elements in terms of, and our brain often does this. Well, what's the scenario? Well, this is entirely realistic. Podcast by Zoom, you're a guest. A little bit of the fantasy element of I'm not big enough to get invited on large podcasters platform. So that would be the hopeful aspirational side of, I wish this would happen. But then you also have I would say more backing into a more realistic appraisal of my book has been published. I think this will happen. I think it will happen and it will be successful to the degree that these folks who do have larger platforms and who I do respect, established professionals, would want to have me on and have a discussion about this material.
I think because when I got the contract from Routledge, I was actually absolutely floored because I had heard of them. I had used some of their books over the years. Right? It's not an unknown.
Yeah. It's always nice to have that validation too of like, it's going to work, but you don't, even if you believe it, there's something magical about, okay, now it's real. It's actually happening. That no matter how much you believe it, just that confirmation, that proof, that you were right. And that it is what you thought it was, that's a moment that, you just enjoy it for first and foremost.
Well, that's it. It made me feel like I'd already won before I even sold the book.
Yeah, definitely. That's exactly the way. So it is literally a victory, and it is something that should be celebrated. And it's a sign of things moving in the right direction versus no movement at all. Yeah. You did say there was a bit of a, oh my God, you're killing me, Smalls. You got to go. Compressed air, my friends. If you have a cat that won't leave you alone or get off your keyboard, just a little spray doesn't hurt them. They don't like it. They don't like getting blown in their face. You describe some emotional content to it, a surreal nature, but an excitement. And A comfort level. You felt comfortable. I can't read my own handwriting here. Those are, I would say, key elements too, in terms of it's a bit surreal. Like, it's hard. What is surreal? Surreal is when it's appears disconnected from reality. It's when it too good to be true in a way. Like, it's hard to accept. Is this really happening? That's kind of the nature of that surreal feeling. If you agree.
Yeah, especially because it's on Zoom, right? You're not even, there's no buildup because you're not traveling somewhere.
It's true.
There's no green. Well, I guess there could be a digital green room, but
like we're in right now. Yeah. That's why I called it that. I actually have a second channel that's called The Comfy Chair, but for some reason, every time I try and drag people in there to make it a locked conversation, it won't work. It's a technical problem. So we're supposed to meet in the green room when we go to the Comfy Chair, but it just doesn't happen. So that's my fault on the being a little bit technologically disabled side of things. But you also had an excitement too. Like, I think these are, again, another realistic self-appraisal in terms of how would I feel if I was in this situation? What would this genuinely feel like to me in reality, not just in imagination? Is what our imagination does, honestly, is try and predict the future as much as possible and to be honest with ourselves in a way that is more difficult when we're conscious, when we can reflect on our thoughts actively. That's where you get the hidden revelations that Freud said was entirely composed dreams. I don't think that's the case, but we've come a long way since then. But I think this is, again, another realistic appraisal of that would be very exciting. I would just be genuinely excited to have some, large platform to get my message out there and speaking with the person I respect, just the opportunity of it all and talking about these concepts that I am expressing in my own unique way that are of interest to me and of interest to the person I'm talking to. That's, I'd like to get to the point someday where people are excited to talk to me. It's like, oh, I've listened to you for years. I finally got on.
Well, not only that, but let's face it, sometimes in dreams, you're kind of free to express certain things. Because let's face it, I have one book, a fairly small social media following. So most people are just going to laugh if they say, oh, yeah, well, just you watch. Maybe I'm going to be on the Brené Brown podcast or Adam Grant's podcast. You'd be like, yeah, come on, it's never going to happen.
That would be a wonderful piece of synchronicity if you were able to get this podcast to them and say, oh, look, I talked about you. You can make this a prophetic dream. All you got to do is invite me.
Well, and the funny thing is that just last month I was invited to be part of a documentary.
Oh.
There's a filmmaker who is associated with a law school. And he's creating some course content and documentaries for this law school. He heard about my book on LinkedIn. We weren't even connected, but somehow somebody we're connected to, he saw it in that feed. Invited me to do a 1-hour interview that he'll edit and include in this series. When we wrapped up, told me that part of what he liked about my approach was that I have a background in organizational psychology. As he studied at the Wharton Business School. One of his professors was Adam Grant.
Oh.
So I'm not saying it's going to happen, but there's a chance that...
There really is. You know what? Speak really practically, like honestly, I would send that guy a copy of this podcast where we're talking about this dream and how you were in there and our understanding of it. He might send it to the professor. That might get his attention more than you sending it to Adam Grant. And that guy, he might say, hey, she's in my documentary and she had a dream about talking to you on the podcast. What if you talk to her? That might actually happen. That's, and then I couldn't say, so I draw the line very, very much between the spooky woo, I say that with love, spooky woo side of dreams, which who knows? I don't know. So I'm not going to comment on that. I set it aside. Supernatural stuff, I don't know what to do with. I can only do the psychological side of things, but that doesn't mean it isn't possible. That doesn't mean this is not literally a prophetic dream. I can't tell the difference, so I don't give any comment on it. But if it comes, I want to know if it comes true. I want to know if you're in a conversation with Adam Grant by Zoom and you have a moment of, oh my God, this is my dream. I want to hear about that. I'm still collecting that evidence.
I'm going to have to pinch myself or blow some compressed air on myself.
That would certainly feel surreal. It certainly would. You're like, oh my God, this is bizarre. I don't know. That's why I really, one of the things that makes someone a wizard is knowing what you don't know. You don't just pull stupid things out of your butt and say, well, I think this, and this is going to happen. Because then everyone goes, well, he's just an idiot. Knowing what you don't know, don't predict beyond your ability to actually say with any degree of certainty. So that's why I say, I don't know, but I'm fascinated by it. I do want to know.
Sometimes we have, I always find it fascinating when we realize we have 1 degree of separation.
Yeah.
I remember probably 3 or 4 years ago, I was invited on a podcast. It was for Startup Canada. And the host interviewed me. And then a few months later, she was interviewing Michelle Obama on stage. I thought, that's interesting.
Yeah. That's great audience exposure too. You get someone who's a big name interviewing a bigger name. And then you were also on their show. That's how I've come across a lot of people where I just watch someone because I like their interview style, like their analysis and commentary. And all of a sudden they have someone on I've never heard of. And I'm like, hey, this guy's kind of interesting. Why don't I check out what he's done? Then I find out he's connected to other people I've already been watching as well. I'm like, how did I never hear about this person before? And suddenly things just kind of fall into place. I love that too. That kind of synchronicity as well. It's especially that 1 degree of separation. I knew the guy that knows the guy. Whoa. That could have also spurred the dream in a sense of this is actually possible. Sometimes we're looking at, well, what if something that is technically possible did actually happen? We can't say for sure it will, but that would be more on the wish fulfillment side. A lot of times we put ourselves in these situations where it's like, well, what if the best possible outcome happened? How would that play out realistically? And then we get a fantasy of it. And that's kind of what we do when we daydream too. Daydreaming there's a book I'm going to be working on pretty soon, which is the psychology of daydreams. And it's related to sleep dreams because it's that abstracted, and by abstract, I don't just mean conceptual, but the old timey word was abstract. We would say distracted or lack of focused attention, distraction, type of abstracted thinking. We let our minds wander and thoughts just come on their own. And sometimes you can get into a trance-like or meditative state where you're watching yourself think and not really controlling it, not trying to influence it or nudge it, just seeing what flows naturally from it. And I don't know how to get people into that state. I'm not a hypnotist, but I've experienced it myself too. And it's when you're driving down the road and you cannot remember the last mile of freeway. You didn't hit anybody because you're still driving, but you couldn't say what you passed or, and that happens to me too. Listening to the radio or a podcast while I'm driving is like, I start thinking about the concepts or just listening to a podcast at all. I start thinking about the concepts and 5 minutes of conversation goes by. I have no idea what they said. I have to rewind it. I get completely lost in my own thoughts.
And I'm sure there's a link between the daydreams and the manifesting.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I think we need license to daydream sometimes too. Like some people go, get your head out of the clouds or quit wool gathering. Now that can be good advice if you're not paying attention to a present important concern. Sure. Get your head in the game. Yeah. But sometimes you're not in the game. And now it's time to let your mind wander, let your fantasies go. What would this look like? I'd say the most common thing is probably what they call stare thoughts. Thoughts you have after a conversation when you're climbing up the stairs, especially after, say, an argument with someone when you're like, I'm trying to present a point of view. I'm not getting my point across. The conversation ends 10, 20 minutes, an hour later. I should have said X, Y, Z. I should have done this in that situation because especially the more impactful these things are, the more we perseverate on them. And that's also perseveration is too far, but rumination somewhere between ignoring it, thinking about it, and ruminating on it. It's because there's something we need to understand, something we feel we failed to accomplish. And, that's why I tell people to literally sleep on it. Sometimes you'll wake up in the morning, you won't remember a single dream, but an answer will come to you because your brain had time to process it free from external input, conscious attention. And you were mentioning that too, in terms of your kind of sleep disruption. lately. I also don't remember most of my dreams. I believe my conceptualizations, I sleep too deeply. My consciousness is too far away from the subconscious dream experience. I'm just not paying attention to it. I just don't see it. So I get nothing out of it. But you feel this may, for you, be related to disrupted sleep, insufficient length of sleep? How would you characterize it?
I think this past couple of months, I've just had so many things happening. I've been a bit overstimulated and just not slept enough. I'll wake up. It's mostly good things, right? A lot of excitement around things that my son's doing, a lot of excitement around my book launch, really nice successes for some of my clients. But my clients, I'm very discreet, so I don't talk about what they're doing. Some of them have hit some amazing milestones, and it's just been absolutely glorious to watch it.
Yeah.
So just probably a lot of overstimulation, but I can't complain because these are just great things.
Yeah, there is good stress. I mean, but it's important, I would say, for people to realize that even positive accomplishments will also involve stress. Bad things are stressful, good things are stressful. It's good stress is kind of a different kind. I think biochemically, we experience it differently, but definitely psychologically, we process it differently. But that doesn't mean it isn't stress. Doesn't mean you won't be stressed, that it won't involve effort. I wonder, just the intuition came to me as like, maybe you don't have as many outlets for talking about these things, especially the private stuff. Like you have to keep it to yourself more often than not.
Yeah, absolutely. I am very discreet. So what stays with one client or starts with one client just kind of ends with that client.
Gotcha.
I sometimes joke around with friends who I have who are lawyers. I'm not sure who has more secrets, them or me.
Right? That's a toss-up too. Yeah, who's got more secrets, your psychologist or your lawyer? That's a good one. It's probably a joke in there. Okay, a psychologist, a lawyer, and a priest walk into a bar, right? Okay, so actually there is a form of solution. I won't say it is the solution, but this is a known problem, say in psychology itself. A lot of therapists, especially say the Freudian analysts, have an analyst. They have their own. So there's a certain stress to the job. It's good stress. You're helping people solve problems. You're putting your mind to work creatively. People are coming out of working with you more healthy than they went in. And you are sponge-like absorbing a lot of their stress and trauma and different things, because you have to care enough to put your mind to work to solve the problem creatively. And that level of caring is taking on some measure of their stress. And that's the boundary things. It's almost like you can't do the job without suffering that ill effect. So the solution that they've come up with is, if you're a psychologist managing a bunch of clients, you want to have someone you can talk to that is also going to keep things confidential. And then there's actual processes and boundaries for that, in terms of you can talk about this stuff with me, but we're going to keep it vague. This is client A under situation Z, and we're not going to name names or get too specific, but you can at least talk through it. That would probably be my advice, if I were to quote unquote advice, is to say, get someone you can talk to that understands how to do that properly. Get some of the stuff off your mind, process it verbally, and that hopefully would improve your ability to manage the good stress without being overwhelmed, disrupting sleep cycles. Because you need the Princess Bride. If you don't have your health, you don't have anything.
Well, thank goodness I do have that in place. But okay. Sometimes when the volume of things is a lot and it's happening in a short time period,
that's true.
Things kind of get out of whack.
Yeah. And it is no panacea. Sometimes you're just going to experience more stress, and you're going to have some life effects, and you get through it, and sometimes there's nothing you can do. Yeah. Like I rambled a lot for a concept you already understood, and a situation you already had under control, but I was doing it mostly for the benefit of the audience. Like here's the way it is.
Absolutely. And it's not all work, right? Like I mentioned, I have a son who, he applied to medical school very early and was thrilled to get interviews at 4 universities, which almost never happens when you apply after second year. So just, being present with him and helping him with some of that prep, even some of the fun stuff, like going shopping for his suit and tie and shoes and all of that.
Oh yeah.
It's just exciting.
It is, yeah, exciting and
Yeah.
exhausting, and good stress in that way. So, yeah, there's certain things like moving. You move to a new house, you got to pack, you got to schlep boxes into a truck, you got to unload the truck, you got to set up your new house. All tremendously stressful, like the top of the list of stressors, along with getting married, births, deaths, and funerals, that kind of thing. Or what is it? Births, funerals, and moving, and marriage, and like, long story short, sometimes you just got to accept this is going to suck for a minute. This is going to be stressful. I'm going to have some, the problem would be then if it doesn't resolve when the stressor goes away. Like if you stay stressed long after the thing is happening, then there's a problem. But otherwise, this is kind of, that's life, right?
I mean, sometimes just reframing it, it's just exciting.
Yeah, for
It's
sure.
just fun and exciting sometimes, and it's okay.
And we forget
Every day isn't Christmas, right?
that's true. And we forget what that's like as a kid sometimes, to say, well, I'm going to go short on sleep because I'm having too much fun at this party. We used to do that for fun. And now, now we value our nap time a little more because as we get older, huh? For sure. Well, I'm going to guess the recurring dreams stopped on their own. It's been a while since you had one.
It's been a while since I had one. I'm not sure if I've had one since my book got published or even since I got the contract.
There you go.
Remember.
That is, I like making these predictive guesses and say, what do you think here? Because it very much seemed related to this specific time and trying to wrap your head around the experience itself. Like what am I experiencing? How do I understand that? How do I, label it? Like this is exciting versus this is unpleasant or stressful. So if my theories hold, then I should be able to make those predictive judgments, that the usefulness of it expired. You didn't need to perseverate on it anymore. You didn't need to run through the scenarios in your mind because now things were actually starting to happen. Now you had real results to look at and say, well, I can worry about that instead, or I can set these other what if concerns to rest. And that's just basically my broad strokes theory of like why we have recurring dreams. Until we understand what we need to understand, or until the situation itself resolves by some definite physical real world happening, then we tend to run these things through our mind over and over again.
Probably a very good analysis because I had all those months in limbo.
Yeah, that's a big deal. Is limbo, that idea of uncertainty. Anything could happen. Nothing could happen. How long do I wait while nothing is happening? Is that normal? Is this too long? All these unresolved questions. As soon as they become resolved, it's like, oh, I can let that go. I don't have to worry about that anymore. Jeez, thank God. Well, did you have any other, say, specific questions about the dream experience? Any element of it that you're like, I sort of understand why that happened, and we could talk about it. But you do or you don't, either way.
I can't think of anything else.
Fair.
I'm still glad I came to talk to you because this was different.
It was just fun and interesting, huh?
Yeah, because nobody asked me about my dreams.
Right? There's actually a old saying is like, don't burden your friends by talking about your dreams. This goes way back to like biblical times in terms of advice. We have Greek and Roman era of like everyone's dreams are fascinating to them, but rarely fascinating to other people. I don't think that's the case if we can draw something useful from it. If we can take it and if we can consider it a mystery to be solved and show how it's relevant to that person's life, then other people can kind of enjoy that process. And what I hope is you watch enough of these videos, you can do this for yourself. You don't need me. You can kind of see what I do and get it and then do it on paper or do it with a friend. All you need is sometimes, for a friend or family to talk to who's willing to listen and who finds the process interesting enough in terms of mystery solving. And you could probably do what I can do. I don't think I think I'm special, but not that unique. I think anyone can do this if they kind of develop some of the talents that I have. And it's not impossible. You too can become a wizard of dreams. Just gotta practice at it.
Interesting process, interesting podcast. I'm looking forward to, flipping through some of your catalog to watch a few more episodes.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Well, I know we're probably coming up on your time limit here, and I'll try and get you out the door. I think we've gone as far as we can in terms of kind of conceptualizing this, the reason it happened, and what you were thinking about that made that particular imagery relevant to your life. That's always what I'm aiming for. That's it. Shorter episode today. I'll just say once again, thank you to our friend, Dr. Helen Ofosu out of Ottawa, Canada, author, executive coach, HR consultant, and YouTuber with a brand new book. What was the title of the book? I forgot to ask you about that.
Yeah, it's called How to Be Resilient in Your Career, Facing Up to Barriers at Work.
Nice. And I'm writing that down. Should have done that. Or I can't believe I forgot to ask that. I'm not an interviewer. I'm a dream wizard. It's completely different. You can find Dr. Ofosu at theresilientcareer.com. Of course, link in the description below. And for my part, I will say, would you kindly like, share, subscribe, tell your friends? All we need more volunteer dreamers. 16 works of historical dream literature. The most recent, Dreams and Their Meanings by Horace G. Hutchinson. I forget the title and author of this book I edited. All this and more at benjaminthedreamwizard.com. Encyclopedia, all 16 works of historical dream literature. And just once again, Helen, thank you for being here. I've enjoyed talking to you.
Me as well. I've enjoyed our conversation. Thank you, and wishing you continued success.
Thank you very much. And everybody out there, thanks for listening.